Welcome to Source Coder Hub. In this React Redux tutorial, we're going to be building a CRUD application using Vite, the newest tool for front-end web development. Let's build a React Redux CRUD application. I'm using lazy loader routes, a loading spinner, and an outlet component to render nested routes. When I click the add route, outlet renders the add post component. I include a title and a description. I click the add button and outlet renders the post list component. I can also search using a search term and type first, and outlet renders the post list component by the search term. Now click view and edit a post. Let's change the title and update, and you see the changes were made. I can view a post in order to delete or add a comment. The new post was removed. If you're new to React, Redux, and Vite, you've come to the right place. Keep on watching. In this CRUD application, we'll cover using Vite to set up a React Redux front-end development environment. We'll install the ES7 extension, the latest version of React Router DOM, and I'll show you how to import and define routes. This is part 1 of a React Redux application series. Subscribe to the channel and you'll be the first to know when the next part releases. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's do it. Before you start this project, you need to have Node.js and NPM installed. So go to this website and find out how to download and install it. To confirm the installation, go to the command line and type node-v and npm-v to get the latest versions. We're going to be using Vite to set up a development environment, so let's head on over to the website and find out a little about Vite. Vite is a French word that means fast and is a next-generation front-end building tool that improves the front-end development experience. Let's click Why Vite to understand the problem Vite solves. JS builders like Webpack install hundreds of dependencies before the application even starts, so of course it's going to take longer to install and run your application. Using a JS builder called ESBuild, Vite pre-bundles only the dependencies you need to start your application, and dependencies are strongly cached so they don't hit the server repeatedly. As for the source code, Vite transforms and serves up source code on demand as the browser requests it. Evan Yo, the creator of Vite, and his team go into more detail, so I recommend you read through this guide. The question is, would you rather start off with an overweight and sluggish application or one that's sexy, fit, and lean? We're going to start slim. So let's go back to the command line and install Vite. Navigate to the directory where you store your projects. Begin by typing npm create Vite at latest. For the project name, type CRUD App. For the framework, select React. For the variant, select JavaScript. And change the directory to CRUD App. And now type npm install. Type code the period to open the project in Visual Studio Code. And in Visual Studio Code, the project opens up in the correct folder. Now we're going to open up a new terminal and type npm run dev to start the application. Click the local server link and the application loads. Now let's create a GitHub repository where we're going to store, track, and collaborate on our project. Because in a real-world project, that's what you would be doing as part of the software development lifecycle. And each time you make any significant changes to your project, you upload to GitHub. We're in GitHub, and we'll start by creating a new repository for this CRUD application. and name it the same name as the project, CRUD App, and type in the description as React Redux CRUD Application, and then click Create Repository. Let's copy these command lines and head over to Visual Studio Code. After that, click H for Help to get a list of available commands. And it's Q for quit, and then we'll clear the previous operations. Now paste the code we copied from GitHub here on the terminal. So the GitHub repository initializes with the README file. Also, all the necessary folders are created to integrate our project with GitHub. For a deeper dive on GitHub, check out my GitHub playlist. Now let's go to the GitHub repository, and when we refresh, we see the README file, but we still need to add the Vite project files. Back in Visual Studio Code, these are all the files that were installed with Create Vite, but there's some files that we don't need, like the Vite logo in the public folder. In the source asset folder, we can remove the React logo. In the app CSS file, we're going to apply custom styles using CSS and Sass so we can remove this content. In the app.jsx file, let's remove useState and references to all the files we deleted. We don't need any of the pre-installed code inside the div wrapper. Instead, let's type some text, "Welcome to the React Redux CRUD Application." Let's save this and close these files. We can remove the index.css file and the references in the main.jsx file. Save and close that. We'll keep the gitignore and packages files. In the index.html file, let's remove this link to the Vite logo. And we can change the title to CRUD App. Let's save the file and close it. Let's add some content in the README file explaining something about the app. Type React Redux CRUD Application using Vite. And save and close it. Let's push our Vite installation up to GitHub. Let's go back to GitHub and click the CRUD App link and notice that the project has updated. Great. Let's head back over to Visual Studio Code and clear the terminal to remove the previous operations and type npm run dev to start the server. Now click the link. And we see that our updates were applied, so we're off to a good start. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's start adding components. But before we do that, we need to add an extension. So click the extensions icon and type ES7+ and click the extension with this author's name. Click the install button. Now expand the folders and we're going to start adding components one at a time. So inside the source folder, create a folder and name it components. Then in the components folder, we'll start adding files one at a time, starting with the about.jsx file. Then contact.jsx, home.jsx, nav.jsx, postlist.jsx, and post.jsx. We're going to go into each file and use the ES7 extension to add code snippet for each file. Starting with the about component, we'll type RFCE, which stands for React Functional Export Component, and when we click it, the starter code magically appears, and that's why we need the ES7 extension. Now I'm speeding this part up because the process is the same for each file. And when we're done, we just save all and close out of each file. And here we are in the app.jsx file, and we need to add routes. Routes include the functionality to navigate or switch from one component to another when the path in the route matches the current URL. Routes preserve state and prevent page refreshes, which provide a better user experience and improve the app's performance. So let's install routes. Go down to the terminal, install the latest version of React Router DOM by typing npm install React Router DOM at latest. After that, we go back to the top and we import BrowerRouter as router, which is an alias, and then routes and route from reactrouter.com. Now we import all the components we plan to navigate to, starting with the About.jsx component. Then we import contact, home, post list, and the posts component. Now let's go down and set up our router system. Let's remove this text. And inside, we'll include all the components we plan to navigate to. And so far, the nav component includes all those paths. Now, I forgot to create the nav component, so we're going to do that now and then import it. So we're going to include the nav component as part of the router system, and we want the nav to appear at the top of our app. Inside router, we're going to include a wrapper for routes, where we'll define each route. So we'll type routes, and inside we'll include route as a self-closing tag. Let's start with the home route. Using the path property, you give the path its name, like about. And using the element property, you decide which component that path should link to. And then we make copies of it and create other routes for about, contact, post, and post list. Post will be a parent route for post list, so we're going to include a post list inside of the route for posts. Now let's go back and make a minor adjustment and add exact in front of all the parent paths. And this becomes especially important when we start nesting because it helps the browser understand that it should only return the parent route when there's an exact match in the URL. Nested routes inherit the parent route, so the post list path will include the parent path in the URL. So we're going to go back to post component and we'll import link from React Router DOM. And we're going to include link to post list. We're using link from React Router DOM, so we don't need to include the component. And since link is part of React Router DOM, the page doesn't refresh when the link is clicked. Let's save these changes and then move to the nav component to create links there. Let's import NavLink from React Router DOM as well as link. Both NavLink and link prevent the page from refreshing when the link is clicked. Let's go down and create the header, and we'll use link for the logo and include it as text. And inside the nav element, we'll include NavLinks pointing to paths for the nav menu items, starting with the post path. Let's copy and paste and include a path to the about, as well as a path to the contact menu item. And if everything looks good, we can save, and we can do a final save all and close. I'm going to clear the terminal and do an npm run dev and click the link to see how this looks on the local server. There's an error. I forgot a period here. So let's save, and the app loads. And the routes are working. Great. And when you click the nested post list link, you see the parent route post as well as post list in the URL. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and push our updates to GitHub. So the app has been updated in GitHub. This app is functional, but it's definitely not the look we're going for. Remember, this is the look we want, so we need to style the app, and that's what we're going to do next. In part 2 of the React Redux CRUD Application series, we're going to incorporate styling using CSS, including Sass, an extension of CSS, to make this application look great. If you want to see the metamorphosis, plug in, connect to the Hub, Source Coder Hub's newsletter. Together, we share knowledge, code, and community. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.